What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today I wanted to talk about something that I've kind of learned in a lot of the Finish Friday sessions, especially working on Philophobia, especially working on different projects and stuff. And that is basically the concept of balancing the types of work that you do. So for a long time, I considered myself a programmer. I considered myself a dude that makes programs and writes code and kind of everyone else I needed help with, because I needed help with the art, I needed help with the sound, I needed help with everything else. And I noticed when I was working with these teams that there would be a sudden burst of motivation, if you will, when let's say we got the art in, or we got the sound effects in, or whatever. And I started to notice that, like, some of that stuff really changes how the entire game feels. Like, let's say you're developing a game that's got like a ground slam, right? The perfect animation and the perfect sound effect to that ground slam adds so much to it. So much to it. So to the point where, like, I noticed that if I was working with an animator, I was working with a sound guy, and they would put their stuff in, then I might tweak my programming just to make sure that, like, it feels good. It might need a second delay or something, or the sound effect is just so perfect, I need to add a little delay to something that happens. And after doing this a couple times, I realized that, like, it's kind of good to balance some of this stuff, right? Like, you shouldn't do all the programming first, then all the audio, then all the animation, and so on and so forth. It's good to kind of balance what you do, and I think this applies mostly to solo developers, right? Teams are a little, it can be a little haphazard in how you get stuff in, and depending on what you're doing, or who you're integrating with, or how you're working with people and all that stuff. But as a solo developer, I like to kind of balance putting in different things. And I know it kind of makes more logistical sense to, like, say, start with programming, then, do all the art, then put in all the animation, and then do a sound pass and put sound on everything. But the stuff works together so much, man. Like, having the right animation, the right sound effect, the right music, it adds so much. And there's so many times where, like, I go in these iteration cycles now where, like yesterday, I talked about iterating in loops, right? Like the minimum viable game, and iterating on top of that. But when you do whole passes like this, let's say you're going to do an enemy, right? So you program the enemy, then you do the sprite or the model or whatever. You do the animation, you do the sound effect, and you put it all in game. It's like, wow, like, that makes a big difference. And you're tweaking back and forth in between the time, right? Like, you might need to change something in the programming to match with the sound effect. You may need to change the sound effect to change the feel. The animation may need a couple delays, frames, or whatever it is. And, like, dude, for me, it's just a better way to work, I think. It's just, no matter what it is, when I iterate like that, when I work, when I balance my different types of work, when I work in that sequence, I always feel like I get way more out of what I'm trying to do. And one of the reasons why I love Finish Friday so much is because it kind of forces me to do that, right? Like, I can't stick on one thing for too long. I got to kind of go through the whole loop. I got to go through the art, the sound, the music, all that. I wish we could do Finish weekends. I guess we'll do that for the game jam one week. But it's kind of the same concept, right? So I want to urge you, if you're working on stuff, to really think about that. Really think about, not only just from a motivational perspective, or not just from a logical perspective, like, do this, then do this, then do this, but also from a motivational perspective. Like, when you finally get that in, it's like, wow, that's so cool. That's so awesome. I love that. It makes me want to play the game, makes me want to make the game a little bit more. And just, there's so many things that I've implemented, like, especially with Philophobia, ramping up development, going crazy at it. It's practically my full-time job at this point. So, as I'm adding stuff in, doing like a complete pass of one thing in an iteration cycle is really effective. And if you're a solo developer, if you're doing all the sound effects, if you're doing all your music, if you're doing all that different stuff, try kind of balancing the workload and see, not only can it, change up a little bit of the a little bit of what you're doing, so you're not always coding or always, you know, making art or whatever. But I think it's also a better way to work. I really enjoy doing it, and I think it really kind of not only breaks up the development for me, but kind of makes me enjoy the process more. It makes me work on different stuff. And the end result, when I finally get there, I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. I'm so glad I did all this. It's just really motivating to continue. So kind of a short, small concept today, but I wanted to share it with you guys because I think it's really helped me out in game development for sure. But if you got any comments on this, if you agree, if you disagree, leave me a comment below. If it's something you do, let me know. I always like to start a discussion with you guys. But once again, I'm Tim Ruswick, and I will see you tomorrow.